Hello everybody, welcome back to another election prediction video. This time we're doing a scenario if Biden decides to drop it from the race and the DNC delegates get to pick who the nominee is. That's just this hypothetical. And I could see Gavin Newsom being one of those candidates they look to as a potential replacement. He is a governor of a very large state. He's a pretty decent debater, I would argue, as well. So as a potential replacement candidate, I think he's near the top of the list. So we're going to go through this hypothetical right now. Gavin Newsom, I do think he would struggle a bit in the Rust Belt. Because, again, I think Trump would try to label him as more of an elitist candidate. He would, highlight his struggles in California, especially with the homelessness issues there, and the cost of living is very high in California. I think he would mainly try to hit him on those types of issues. But I do think Gavin Newsom would be a bit of an upgrade over Biden because, again, the age issue is neutralized, and now the age issue shifts to Donald Trump. So Gavin Newsom being a much younger candidate, he can exploit that weakness in the debates if Trump wishes to debate him, because there's a potential likelihood that Trump doesn't even want to do debates like he did with the Republican primary. But I think I set up all the safe states here. We can just head right into this video. Okay, starting off with Iowa, I don't think Gavin Newsom would do well in this state. Iowa's also just trending Republican, so I have this as a safe Republican state. Alaska, with ranked choice voting, yeah, I could see it being below a 10% victory for Donald Trump. So I have this as a likely state. Moving on to Ohio, I do think Newsom could do a bit better than Biden here, just because he's a much younger candidate. I could see him getting a bit better margins in Ohio than Biden would. But I still think Trump wins the state by 9 points. Moving to Florida, I think Trump probably wins here by about 7 against Newsom and probably wins Texas by about 6. Again, Newsom, he didn't do that well with Latino voters back in the 2022 gubernatorial race in California. So I could see that happening nationwide because his Latino appeal could be lacking in that regard. So I could see him just underperforming in Texas and Florida, which is why they're both likely Republican states. Moving on to New Mexico, still think he wins it by a likely blue margin, even with his weakness among Latino voters. Same with Virginia, traditionally Democratic states. I think he'll be able to perform pretty decently in both of these two states. Okay, let's see. In the state of Maine and New Hampshire, honestly, I think Trump's pretty much despised in the state of New Hampshire. Most polls here just keep showing Trump down by a likely blue margin. So I really don't think it would be any different. I think Newsom would be able to win New Hampshire by a likely blue margin. Honestly, you might even see Maine be to the right edge of New Hampshire in 2024. I think that's a real potential possibility. But right now, I think Newsom would still win Maine at large by a likely blue margin. Same with Maine's first, which is a very Democratic district, while Trump ends up winning Maine's second by a likely Republican margin. Okay, let's move on to the next few states. In North Carolina and Georgia, polls, they did a poll of Newsom v. Trump in Georgia. He does terrible in the state. It's probably because he wouldn't, get a lot of African American turnout. I could see that being an issue for him. It really depends on who he picks for VP, because he needs to win over black voters here to have a chance in Georgia and North Carolina. So I just have these states both as just lean Republican states. I don't think Newsom could appeal that well in these southern states. I really think he should probably just focus on winning in Nevada, Arizona, and the Rust Belt states up here. Moving on to Nebraska second, yeah, I totally think Newsom would be able to win this district. Again, it's just trending left, so I think he'll be able to get a lean blue victory here. But Trump will do a bit better here just because he is doing better with independents than he was in the past. That's true. He's definitely picking up among those margins. It's not just the undecided left-wing people that are hurting Biden. It's really just him losing a bit of swing voters to Donald Trump at this point. And we have a few Biden voters from 2020 going to Trump even, and some focus groups I've seen. So that's a real issue facing the Democrats with Trump as the nominee in the 2024 election. Moving on to Nevada and Arizona, I mentioned Latinos would be a pretty big issue for Newsom because, again, he underperformed among them in the California governor's race. So I have Nevada as a lead Republican. I do think he'd probably do a bit worse than Biden in this state, which I currently have Nevada going tilt R for Biden v. Trump. But yeah, I don't think Newsom would do the best in Nevada just due to Latino voters. However, with Arizona, even with Gavin Newsom's weakness with Latino voters in this state, I kind of still think that Newsom would be able to edge out Trump here. Again, Trump, he isn't the most popular guy with a lot of these McCain Republicans or moderate Republicans. He pretty much alienated them. And Kari Lake running on that Senate ticket and further just saying those types of Republicans have no place in the Republican Party. Again, I just see Trump not winning Arizona. I still have huge doubts about him winning here. Even with all these polls showing him up here, I just doubt it. I really think these undecideds in Arizona are a break for the Democrats here. And with Trump being in his 70s and Newsom being a much younger candidate, I think he would do well with independent voters in the state of Arizona, even with Newsom getting a bit worse margins with Latino voters. Okay, let's move on to these 4 Rust Belt states. So again, I could see Newsom having a bit of weakness here, like I mentioned before. I have Minnesota going as about a lean blue state. I still think he would get good turnout in these urban and suburban counties in Minnesota, offsetting any losses in the red rural areas, which Trump just continues to do well in the state of Minnesota with. There's also potential of third parties getting the ballot that makes it harder for Newsom to win, but I really think with a much younger candidate, you wouldn't see that much drift from Democratic support like we would see with Biden and those third-party candidates getting on the ballot here in this state. But so far, I haven't seen a lot of news out of Minnesota for third parties getting on the ballot, which is good news for Democrats so far. Okay, moving on to 3 Rust Belt states, the states that'll decide the election in 2024, in my opinion. Typically, they vote together, but I think that'll probably change in 2024 as of right now for most candidates. So again, with Wisconsin, it is a much more rural Rust Belt state, so I don't think Newsom would get the best margins here considering he didn't do good in rural California. So I have this as a tilt Republican state, just narrowly in favor of Trump. So Newsom needs to sweep Michigan and Pennsylvania. Moving on to Michigan, I do think he would do better than Biden in this state. He wouldn't have again, Biden's getting blamed for the situation in Gaza, so I do think Newsom would probably perform better than Biden with Arab voters, which would definitely give Democrats a good boost in this state. However, with populist voters, it's hard to tell, but listen, I think Newsom's just an upgrade over Biden in most of these ways, just because he neutralizes that age issue. So I would probably put this state of Michigan as tilt blue. Then moving on to Pennsylvania, this is one state I actually think Biden would do better than Newsom here, and this would actually cost Newsom the election. Pennsylvania is Biden's birth state. Pennsylvania voters just feel a better connection with Joe Biden. And this is one of the states that Biden polls the best in out of these swing states. So I do think Newsom wouldn't perform the best in Pennsylvania against Trump, and I even think Trump would win narrowly the state of Pennsylvania against Gavin Newsom, because I think Trump's just going to label Newsom as an elitist. He's going to rally those populist voters around him, even with him being much older than Newsom. I just see Trump narrowly edging out Newsom in the state of Pennsylvania currently. So that's my prediction of his Newsom versus Trump. If you're new to the channel, I'd highly recommend subscribing. Would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to comment down below and leave me any feedback, I'm always interested in hearing your guys' comments. But other than that, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.